right, I think it's important to set expectations from the very beginning. They say unmet expectations lead to frustration. So I have to give some strong viewer discretion. My slides will not be as nice as Wes Huff's. This is actually my first time using Keynote to speak, believe it or not. So have a little grace with me, a little patience with me. I got a crash course session by Wes. He is a wizard at this stuff. So give it up one time for Wes. That was an amazing talk. This was the fastest yes I said to speaking at any event when they asked me to come here. I feel extremely unqualified to be on this stage, but hopefully you guys glean a little bit of wisdom through my journey. So my talk is called From Pixels to Purpose, Discerning Christian Stewardship of Digital Platforms. All right, so picture this. June 27th, 1954, Berlin, Germany, the Olympic Stadium looms, stone arches scarred from World War II, a relic of the 1936 Nazi Games. Billy Graham, a young preacher from North Carolina, steps to a mic. 80,000 people fill the stadium, not for a race, but for revival. His voice cuts through, preaching Christ to a crowd bigger than most Olympic Games there. Across his life, he'd reached millions. His largest, hitting 1 million people in Seoul, South Korea in 1973. One mic, one message, massive impact. But this stadium was not neutral. This stadium was built by Hitler. Built for its propaganda. It symbolized division. And now, less than a decade after World War II was done, it's symbolizing hope. Some loved it, others didn't. German critics called Graham's God's machine gun for his rapid-fire style preaching. But the knives came out. Der Spiegel sneered, branding him a Hollywood huckster. I think Billy Graham was the original influencer. With religion for mass consumption by the East German press raging, calling it American propaganda in the Cold War. Was it a flex or was it redemption? Graham saw it as a battleground for souls. And I think he took that mic, and I think Billy Graham did what he did because of this passage right here. So what Paul is writing in Romans chapter 10, many of us are familiar with it. Romans 10, verse 14 and 15, it says, how then can they call on the one they have not believed in? And how can they believe in the one of whom they have not heard? And how can they hear without someone preaching to them? And how can anyone preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. People can't hear the good news unless someone tells them about the good news. I know we've often heard the phrase, preach the gospel, and when necessary, use words. No, we have to use words. It's literally words. Jesus is the Word of God, and we are called to preach the gospel and to live out the gospel. So it's and both, okay? But before we get into that, I just want to say yesterday it was stadiums. Today it's screens. The mission's the same, the tools are new. Okay, let me hit pause just for a moment. I know that some of you guys may not know me, so I'll give you guys a bit context. My name is Ruslan. This is a picture of my amazing family. My wife, Monette, we've been together 21 years, married 17, okay? This is my son, Levi. He is 10 years old. He is a Minecraft wizard. I don't see the appeal. The pixels are really bad, like from when I was a kid. I don't understand. But that ties into the talk today, from pixels to purpose, right? And this is my Zoe. She is 3 years old, my daughter. She is 3 going on 13. She has a lot of personality, a lot of sass, and she thinks she's grown, and it's very frustrating. The point of me showing you guys my family is to give you guys a bit more context about me, and that ultimately my heart for today's talk is that we're talking about stewardship. And stewardship is one of those like really religious words, like what does that even mean? Stewardship just means management. And a lot of what I find value in and excitement is talking about managing the time, the talent, the treasure, the resources, the technology, the things that God has allowed us in this day and age to manage. And so I'm not any special. I don't have an expertise in apologetics. I can't read the original Isaiah scrolls. I don't know the languages. I've never been to seminary. My education is a community college degree in liberal arts. And I majored in visual performing arts with a track in music. That's my background. But I've always been committed to the local church. And it's because I had a radical encounter with Jesus and plugged in and started serving, and that eventually became the overflow of my online presence. I'm gonna tell you a bit more about my story. So I'm originally from a country called Azerbaijan, Baku. Wes mentioned it earlier. I grew up in the former Soviet Union. So that time in Germany, the Cold War, I was on the wrong side of the Cold War. Okay, and you could tell I grew up in Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan was a part of the Soviet Union, which was communistic. You could tell I grew up under communism by, this is a picture of me as a kid. It's a real picture. And you could tell I grew up in communism by how tight I'm holding on to that bread of life with every fiber of my being. We came to the United States as refugees. I'm ethnically Armenian. My father's Armenian. My mother was adopted by an Armenian family in Azerbaijan. There was the pogroms of Baku, which was basically an ethnic cleansing of all Armenians out of Baku and then eventually out of all of Azerbaijan. We came as refugees to the United States. My mother and my father split up, which led me down a crazy dark spiral of just getting into all kinds of trouble, getting arrested at the age of 11. And then I finally moved. My mom moved me because she saw how much of a derelict I was. And we moved to North County, San Diego, which is like a suburb of San Diego, to a city called Vista. And I decided that I'm gonna go on a straight and narrow. And the thing that captured my attention, this is the late 90s. Any 80s kids in here? Yeah? So this is like Michael Jordan at his peak. You guys remember that era, The Last Dance? Yeah? So I decided that I was gonna be a professional basketball player. And then my mom's boyfriend, Losha, who was sitting in our living room in his tighty-whities smoking a cigarette, had to explain to me something called genetics. And he said, buddy, you're 5'10", and there's never been an Armenian that's made it to the NBA. It's a true thing. As a matter of fact, if you factor in the Kardashians, we've actually taken more careers out of the NBA than we've added to the NBA. So then I got cut my sophomore year on the junior varsity team, and people, are like, it's okay, Michael Jordan got cut. It's like, no, Michael Jordan got cut from his varsity team. I was short, white, and not very good, okay? So I decided my career path, the next best thing, was I was going to be, a professional rapper. Next best thing. And there was something interesting that happened here. I started making music, and around the same time, I'm coming to faith in Jesus, and I'm trying to figure out how to use my talents to honor God. And at the same time, something really interesting happened in the late 90s, and it exploded through the early 2000s. A technology hit the internet called Napster. All right. 80s babies. How many of you were breaking the law with me in the early 2000s? Burning your CDs, downloading music, unsure if the FBI was gonna come to your house. That really happened, by the way. So Napster drops, a college kid flips the music industry upside down. Record labels are suing. Sales are crashing. Why were they crashing? Because what the major labels were doing at the time is they were taking an album of 20 songs. We would really want, maybe 2 or 3 songs on there, and the rest of the album was trash. So we would just download it, right? And that tanked. But what happened is access exploded. Now, anyone can get their music in smaller formats. Power shifts from the gatekeepers to the crowd. And this disruption wasn't destruction, that it was redistribution. Now, some of my friends back in America have a problem with that word. Apparently, you guys don't like that word either, because we're afraid of all things socialism. And I get it. But the redistribution of the music industry and the access to the technology completely revolutionized everything. It democratized music as we know it today. And a decade later, something came along called a home studio. You no longer had to go to a $100,000 or $1 million studio to make the records. Kids can get a studio. They can get an app like GarageBand or Pro Tools or Logic Pro. They can get a cheap microphone. You don't need a record company. Artists record in their bedrooms. They were uploading it to YouTube, to MySpace. And the tools didn't just change creators, they changed who got heard. So this led me to do the same thing. I was making music, learning how to make music, and crafting the skill of mixing, recording myself, releasing the music on MySpace. Anybody remember MySpace? Releasing the music on MySpace, YouTube. I took the skills of learning how to create music, and then I leveraged those over into learning how to then mix music, and then from mixing music to mixing and editing video, and then from editing video, I was able to get a job at my church, working in their media department from 2013 to 2015, and then ultimately, I was able to build out an independent music career, being a full-time musician from 2015 to 2021. That was my main source of income. My wife was able to stay home, and we were able to figure out how to do it because of the technology, because of the internet, because of everybody being able to get music right on their phone. You no longer have to go to a bookstore, You no longer go to a CD Baby, a Tower Records, a Warehouse Music. We could all consume it. That disrupted everything. Now, let me tell you something interesting. What I discovered is that the same thing started happening with media. In the same way that you can now have a music recording studio in the corner of your bedroom with a cheap microphone, a laptop, and some headphones, and then distribute it through a device called a smartphone to TikTok and Instagram, the same thing started happening with the advent of technology. And so as I'm working on my church and I'm learning the media side, I'm transitioning off. I remember live streaming for the first time in like 2017. And I remember borrowing my church's $5,000 video switcher so that I could cut between different angles and do a live podcast, okay? Now that same video switcher, that same technology is $300. That means that we now have home podcast studios. That instead of needing a massive production like CNN or MSNBC or Fox News with big cameras and big lights and a big set and a bunch of people running all the equipment, I could be alone in my garage, running a production and streaming to thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of people from my garage. And that's caused another massive disruption, but now it's in mainstream media. Now it's in how we get information. The biggest voices today are not on cable TV. The biggest voices today are not on the streaming platforms. They're on YouTube. They're on podcasts. They're reaching more people at scale with a smaller fingerprint and able to hire people, pay them a livable wage, and push forward their messaging. And this is incredible. And the mainstream media is losing their mind, and because they're losing their shirt right now. But the disruption isn't causing destruction, it's actually adding more opportunities to get the messaging out there. So, let me pull back the curtain a little bit. These are some of my YouTube analytics. Can I give you guys a little bit of details? This might get a little techie, okay? This is 100,000 unique viewers, okay? And so, by the grace of God, this is not to brag, but to just show you guys what's possible. That a refugee kid from Azerbaijan, Baku, who didn't grow up with his dad, got arrested at the age of 11, is able to build a studio in his garage, hire multiple full-time employees, and we reach 100,000 unique viewers a day. That's Berlin every single day. Billy Graham's largest audience was in Seoul, South Korea. It was 1 million people. We reach 1 million unique users a month, okay? Without any corporations behind us, without any spend on advertising, without any of that sort of stuff. And so this isn't about my reach, this is about yours. Meaning this, they've done studies, and even if you aren't into all the technology stuff, the most quiet, introverted person in this room, throughout the course of your lifetime, you will influence 10,000 people on the conservative side. Every single person in here has influence. Now imagine if you aren't very extroverted, however, you have wisdom and value to add, and you're willing to get in front of a camera in your bedroom and add the insight that you have, add the expertise that you have, lean into the cultural zeitgeist. Everything changes. But I think there's some false and negative narratives we've told ourselves about this whole thing. And I could even sense some of you guys as we're talking about analytics, you're like, ew, we're talking about numbers. This word content, when we start talking about content, right? A lot of the jargon we use around this is honestly kind of stale, right? So when we're talking about creating stuff, we're talking about making content. This is a very stale word, okay? But let me just simplify it for you. When we're talking about content and we're talking about using digital technology to further something, it's not just content. Content is just a filler word. Content just means messaging. Content is just messaging. It's just what is the message that is getting out there. Here's another nasty word that we don't like, brand. Ew. Nike's a brand, corporation, they're soulless, right? But all a brand is just the reputation of something. You have a reputation. You have a brand. You have how you interact with people. Every single person in here has a reputation. And so if we're willing to reframe some of this in the way we think about the technology, we may be able to lean more in without the cognitive dissonance and should I be doing this? Is it about me? We can lean into our expertise and lean into the conversation. Here's another word. This is the dirtiest word of all. You guys ready for it? Algorithm. Oh, more data terms, Ruslan. The algorithm. The algorithm's no mystery. The algorithm is just a mirror. It reflects what people want, feel, and seek. TikTok doesn't crown stars, it finds them. YouTube doesn't pick winners, it boosts what's already resonating. All the algorithm is just the audience. The algorithm serves what the audience is searching for. I'll give you guys a real example of this. How many of you guys heard of the show House of David? It's the #2 show on Amazon Prime. Amazon, a major corporation, has just invested hundreds of millions of dollars in Christian media. Why? Because Amazon is the most consumer-obsessed company out there. They track all of your data. They look at all of our searches. And they know, interesting facts, that Bible sales last year are the highest they've ever been. 25% increase year over year. They know what people are searching for. They understand the algorithm and what is the audience's desire, and so they're willing to step in and do a show like House of David and bring on things like The Chosen and invest money. Why? Because the algorithm is just a reflection of the audience. It's just what people care about. And there's what I believe, a vibe shift, Gavin Ortland called it. We can say revival. I think it's just another great awakening. The last one we had was in the late 60s with the Jesus Revolution. I think there's something shifting. And this idea of the algorithm being the audience, it's not something new. It's not revolutionary. It's about caring what people care about. And we see Paul exhibit this in Acts chapter 17, verse 28. Paul's on Mars Hill in Athens, is surrounded by idols, thinkers, and philosophers. And he says something very interesting to them. He says, "For in him we live and move and have our being. As some of your own poets have said, we are his offspring." People gloss over this verse, but what's so fascinating is that Paul is quoting their own pagan poets and philosophers back to them. This happens all throughout the book of 1 Corinthians. Everything is permissible for me, but not everything has been. That's their quote. He's taking their quotes and their poets and their philosophy, and he's using it to speak to them and then contextualizing the truth about who Jesus is. Paul in Mars Hill is one of the most fascinating displays of evangelism because he cares about what they care about, despite their idolatry, despite their false theology, despite their ideology. He quoted their poets, met them in their language, and pointed to Jesus. The algorithms are Athens. Quote the memes, the trends, and steward it for the gospel. He cared about what they cared about. Now, it's interesting because Wes Huff actually exhibited this. I'm sure many of you guys are familiar with Wes' meteoric rise to being a 2025 version of the Beatles. So what happened? Well, Wes engaged with a video from a gentleman named Billy Carson. Billy Carson was spewing nonsense. Wes, leaning into his expertise, did a reaction video. That reaction video led to a debate. That debate led to a lot of content for a lot of Christian creators, if I'm gonna be honest with you. It's great, gold mine. Thanks, Wes. That debate led to an appearance on Joe Rogan. And he did all this without the intention of trying to go viral, without trying to be famous, but simply being faithful, leaning into his expertise in the area that he's an expert in and engaging with the conversation that's happening and the felt needs of people and caring what people care about. This shouldn't be foreign to us as Christians. So, here's the punchline. If we can use the algorithm, we can fill digital stadiums. 100,000 daily unique users, 1 million unique users monthly. If we can touch the algorithm, we could fill digital stadiums. From Graham's mic in Berlin to Napster's chaos, from studios to TikTok, text about access. Your pixels are your pulpit. The algorithm's the audience. Paul showed us how to meet people where they are. Stadiums are optional. Souls aren't. One view, one soul at a time. In my breakout session, I'm gonna be leaning into this conversation as someone that shockingly is not a Wes Huff. I don't call myself an apologist. I don't have a degree in theology. I've never been to seminary. I'm gonna be talking about how do you do this in a very practical sense without being an expert in anything, without being someone that is super duper educated and smart. And so I'll be going deeper on that. But I wanna just close with casting a bit of vision right now. We are in the most technologically advanced time ever. The rate of expansion is so fast. And I believe there is another great awakening happening or on the cusp of happening right now. And we can use technology to get the messaging out there. But even if that's not your forte, I get it. Some of us, you don't want to be on YouTube. I think everyone should be on YouTube. That's just my bias because I'm a YouTuber. Okay. But here's the deal. Even if you don't want to be on YouTube, hear me loud and clear. We can't disciple these people over a screen. These people need local churches. These people need relationship. They need life on life. They need connection. They need people to come alongside of them in their journey. And so as this thing is happening, I want to preface it. You're gonna see more people show up at your church that don't have any background in anything related to faith. The biggest explosion we're seeing at my local church right now is young married couples, maybe in their late 20s, early 30s, some in their 40s, that were the nuns of the previous generations. Their parents didn't go to church, and they're just coming to church in their 30s trying to figure this thing out. They don't know what the 4 Gospels are. They don't know who the apostles are. They don't know anything. And so this revival, this awakening that's going to happen is not gonna happen in stadiums. It's not gonna happen in large rooms like this, though this is a very nice room, very nice room, very nice room. It's gonna happen in circles. It's gonna happen with all of us being willing to do life with people. It's gonna happen with all of us being willing to build bigger tables, to talk to people we may not agree with, to love our enemies and invite them in. And the technology aspect, that's just the top of funnel. That's just the beginning. That's the conversation starter. And so if you're not a tech person, fine, I get it. If you don't want to be a creator, I get it. That's A-okay with me. But hear me loud and clear. These people are going to start coming to your church, and they're going to need you. And especially, hear me loud and clear, especially if you're more, how do I say this, seasoned. I know, young people, the Zoomers, you guys think they all got TikTok brain. Seasoned people in here, hear me. This next generation needs you. You've probably forgot more than they've thought about. They need you. Don't be too high and mighty to get and connect with the younger generation. Younger generation, you need the older generation. There's people in this room that are a season ahead of you, 2 seasons ahead of you. Maybe you're a newlywed and they have kids that are teenagers. You need to do life on life with people. That's the beautiful part of how all this can overflow and impact the world, is that the people are coming, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. So even if you aren't into this whole tech thing and the theology of technology, that's fine. Just be willing and available to do life with people and to disciple people, because we can't do it through screens. We need you guys to do it. Amen? All right, guys, thank you so much. My name is Ruslan. Love you guys.